it's June, which means it's time for yet another monthly TBR. This month's TBR is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to give myself more room for mood reading, because for the past 2 months I have sort of been in a bit of a reading slump where I haven't been picking up as much books, largely because the books that I've been picking up have been ones that have just not worked for me. My goal for this is not to be like, these are the books that I'm going to read no matter what, but it's more so, these are books that I'm interested in potentially picking up throughout the month, but I'm going to give myself more freedom to put them down if I'm not enjoying them and pick up different ones based on what my interests are. But I do have quite a couple of books here. The first book is the Scarlet Alchemist. This is actually a carryover from last month's TBR, and I have started this one, but I started it like basically the beginning of the month because the book that I was reading before this took me until the end of the month to finish. So far I'm really enjoying it. We're following a main character named Zelon who aspires to become a royal alchemist, and there's some sort of mystery going on where the crown prince has some sort of mysterious illness and is trying to recruit her to help him to figure out what is wrong with him. And this is also set in a world that is inspired by historical China, specifically the Tang Dynasty and the reign of Wu Zetian, who is the only female Chinese emperor in all of history. And in this world, under the guidance of Empress Wu, the royal alchemist actually found the cure for immortality. So there's a lot of interesting magic things going on in this one. So I am really intrigued by this. I'm also loving the vibes of the world and the world building so far. So I'm excited to continue with this one and finish it. The next book that I have here is The God and the Gwisin. This is the sequel to a book called The God and the Gumiho, which I read last year. Really enjoyed that one. It was a fun fantasy romance following an exiled god and a Gumiho, which is a fox spirit in Korean folklore and mythology, as they're sort of forced to team up to eradicate the world of evils beyond measure. And there's a lot of really interesting exploration in that in terms of the romance itself, and also a questioning of when people can be able to seek redemption for their past crimes. And I really like those themes, and I'm hoping that this one sort of builds upon those themes more. And I'm excited and also a bit hesitant to see where the author goes with this series, because that first book ended on such a big cliffhanger ending. I'm optimistic but also scared because I really want things to go well for these characters. I'm excited for this one. The next book I have is a recent addition to my collection, and it is The Floating World by Axie. This is the YA May Fairy Loot pick, and I'm really excited for this one. I have read from Axie before. She had a book that was called The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea that I quite enjoyed. It was a cute but also I think well done YA fantasy romance that was inspired by a traditional Korean folklore ballad about a girl who was thrown to the sea to become the wife of a sea god. So I'm interested to see what she does in this one, because it seems like while there is a lot of inspiration taken from Korean folklore, just as she did in her other work, that this one is more of her own world, her own unique spin on things. So I am really excited to see what she does with this one. And this cover is also really stunning. Like, the book in general is really pretty, and I think even just the base, like US and also the UK ones, are really pretty as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this one. Another one that I have that I've been thinking about reading for a while now is Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. So this is the first book in the Tomes of Tea series that follows these two characters, one who is like a head mage and the other one who is a former bodyguard to the queen, who sort of escaped their old lives to open a tea and coffee shop together. And there's also a romance between them, so this is very much in that cozy fantasy vibe, as well as this is also a queer love story as well between our two characters. And given that it's June and June is Pride Month, I'm hoping to read more books with queer representation in them. So I'm excited to get to this one, and I've heard great things about this one. I also have the second one in the series, so if I do end up really enjoying it, I could always just read the second one as well. Another one sort of in a similar vein to Can't Spell Treason Without T is Wooing the Witch Queen by Stephanie Burgis. This is part of the Queens of Villainy series, in the same cozy genre, but it is taking more of like a humorous spin in terms of having these more villainous characters. I'm definitely intrigued by this one, and we're following a witch queen who I believe falls in love with a like mysterious librarian, so I am really interested in what goes on in this one. It is also blurbed by the author of The Spell Shop. It is one of my favorite cozy fantasy books, so excited for this one. The one that I'm kind of the most hesitant about, because I feel like it might be set in a more winter time setting. When I read books, like, they need to be in a setting that is like akin to the setting that I'm in, so I don't like reading like books that are set in winter in the summer. This book is Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. There are these different heirs to these magical families with different powers who are basically all trapped on this ship together, sailing the seas, and slowly, one by one, they start getting like ticked off, like murdered. I think that's a really interesting premise. I've also heard that this one has a lot of queer representation in it as well, so I'm excited to potentially get to this one as well, though it's sort of the one that I think is like least high on the priority list. Next one is actually another Fairy Loot pick, and it was last month's, which was April, is The Glittering Edge by Alyssa Valere. We're following a main character whose mother, I believe, has died recently, and there's some sort of curse in the town where if someone falls in love with people from these particular witch families who have these curses on them, then they will die. I believe our main character, Penny, is sort of working with two of the members of these different witch families to try and resolve that feud so that no one else dies like her mother had. Really interesting premise, and this one is another one that I've heard that there's some queer representation in, so excited to get to this one. It's also really pretty. I showed it off more in an unboxing, but this is a short one, which makes up for the fact that the next one after this is a really long one, but this is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar, and Max Gladstone. This is a science fiction sort of romance novella almost, where we're following two characters falling in love with each other on opposite sides of a time war that separates them, and I believe it's mainly told through letters that they are sending back and forth between each other. So I'm really interested to see how that epistolary format works in this novel, as well as to see how the science fiction elements are interwoven into the narrative, because it is so short, and I think the prospects of a time war is really interesting, and the fact that it could be like a love story on top of that, it seems like a really cool idea, and I'm excited to see how the authors play with those themes. It's also another queer book as well. And then the last one of the physical books that I have here is a big chunky one, and one that I'm sort of like, why on earth do I think it's a good idea to put this giant book on this list when I'm in a reading slump? And it's The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. But once again, this one I feel like is really popular amongst the queer community because there is a lot of queer representation in it, and it also has dragons. And like, what more do you need to know about a book other than that it has dragons to be interested in it? And apparently there's a lot of like court politics and intrigue, and I believe there is another book that is interconnected in this world that is coming out sometime in this year. And I also have the other book in this series that's called A Day of Fallen Night, and I haven't read either of them, so I feel like I should probably get to them soon, because I'm kind of tempted to get that new one as well, which is crazy because it's like I should not be buying books in series when I have not even started them. And irregardless, I'm really excited to get to this one. If I do get to it, I'm not 100% sure if I'll end up finishing it, but it would be nice nice to at least start this. I also have a few ARC books that I would like to get to. However, I've been quite bad at reading my ARC books, largely because they are digital copies and I don't really like digital reading as much. But one of the ones that I have is called To Sway a Trickster, which is in a series of romances written by different authors, but this one is by an author named Jess Drew, inspired by Greek mythology, in particular the characters of Hebe and Prometheus, who from my studies of Greek mythology don't have any stories to do with one another. Hebe is the daughter of Zeus and is the goddess of like eternal youth, and Prometheus is one of the Titan gods. I'm not going to get too into it because I can go on about Greek mythology forever, but I don't think people want to listen to that. So I am excited to see this author's interpretation of those things because I do love Greek mythology and love to see authors' interpretations of it, even if they're not 100% accurate to the source material. But I still think it's fun to see the ways that authors use a source material and create something new. Another one that I have that I've already started reading is called The Darkest Oath by Lauren Lee Mereweather, following an immortal knight who lived during the Crusades and was like sort of cursed to immortality and forced to forever serve the French throne. However, our present day timeline is set during the French Revolution and the time. There is also another character that some sort of romance going on with, and there's, you know, they can't be together because of the curse and stuff like that. So I'm interested in this. It seems sort of like Beauty and the Beast inspired, which is really interesting to me. Also, in April, I had started a book called They Called Me Lioness, a Palestinian girl's fight for freedom by Ahed Tamini and Dena Takruri, and I was really liking this one. It is a in-depth and heart-wrenching memoir about Ahed's experience growing up within Palestine and growing up within this tumultuous period of political upheaval where Israel settlers were slowly taking more and more land, Palestinians, eventually to the point where we're now at today, where there is a massive war and genocide going on currently in Palestine. Because of a lot of the things that are currently going on in the world, I found it really difficult to continue reading this book, largely because it's written before a lot of these current events that are happening right now, and so it's really hard to read these terrible things happening to her and her family and to know in the back of your head that what is going on right now is worse than what I'm reading about. And I think even if you're just paying attention to the news at all, that's pretty apparent. It's rather difficult for me to read that one, though I do think it is important to be educated and know about what is going on in Palestine, to listen to the people who are actually living through it and have lived through it for decades now. This is one that I still am very interested in reading. Alright, so thank you for joining me for this TBR, and here are the books that I talked. Let me know if you have read any of these books, which ones you liked, which ones you didn't like, or if there are any here that you're excited to get to. Just feel free to let me know which books you're looking forward to reading. Thank you for joining me once again. Goodbye!